On my left is Priscilla Martel, who with her husband, Charlie Vanover, were the original owners of Restaurant du Village, which I think many of you have gone to.
Thanks.
Wonderful, fabulous restaurant. Chris Prosperi has been a friend since 1999.
Crazy.
He opened his restaurant with his wife, Courtney Fabriello, in 1999. I was writing a little book that
She's got it.
and my friend Eunice has a copy of it. And I didn't know a whole lot about restaurants around Hartford. So Bill Daly, who was writing for the Current at that point, I called and I said, I need a couple of people from the Hartford area. And he said, well, you've got to talk to Courtney and Chris. And they have been friends ever since. They, out of the Zagat Guide, which I think most of you know about, the highest you can get is a 30. And the 30s, I don't know if there are any 30s, maybe in New York City. But I think you get a 27. That's pretty darn good. And it is, it's maybe a little bit of a long drive, but so worth it, it never stops me from going. He is actually going to cook for you tonight. I didn't, and I said, I don't think we have a stove here. And he said,
I got one
Here
in the
it comes.
car.
I've got my own in the trunk.
Chefs
So-
travel with three
Yes.
things. A portable burner, an extension cord, and duct tape. And we always say with those three things, we can do anything.
Well, he can do anything. I can't do anything, but then again, I'm another chef. I am so thrilled to have both of them here. We are all real lucky. This is going to be a real fun time. They are going to talk and cook. You don't have to cook.
She did all
But-
of the
I did mine
Yes,
at
she's
home.
done all of her thing, and Charlie has done all the bread. And this will probably take maybe 35, 40 minutes, and then there will be lots of time for questions. So I'm going to turn both of you onto this. Priscilla, why don't you start with
Because she's
things
got
we've
the
never...
coolest-
I got the cool stuff.
She has really cool stuff.
So Chris called me and said, hey, Lee wants me to participate in this project. Would you participate? What should we do? And flavor is my single most favorite topic because it relates to just about everything. And when we think of flavor, we think immediately, I don't like garlic, I don't like cayenne pepper. But flavor really encompasses much more than that specific flavor. I write for a trade magazine called Flavor in the Menu, which I have a copy here, that goes to the restaurant trade. And we talk about the basic tastes, which are salt, sweet, bitter, sour, and something called umami, which is a fullness. You find it in mushrooms and tomato paste and Parmesan cheese. It's the presence of glutamate. That's taste. And those are the only things we can technically feel on our tongue and in our mouth in terms of recognizing them. But flavor is a bigger category. 80% of it is aroma. So as someone who loves perfume, that's why I know I'm very allied to flavor. But it's also the textural feel and somewhat of the appearance of food. So for chefs, the cooking, the kind of ideas of cooking haven't really changed in millennia. A little bit here and there. But we can switch the flavors and the textures and really create new cuisines from that. So when we thought about flavor, you had a great idea. I'm not going to let you talk about yours when it comes up. And I immediately thought of something that has struck me, and maybe like all of us, with the trend today for eating local, looking for our cuisine of New England, this is a product that really, really jumped out at me. And this is a shagbark hickory syrup. And it's the company called Turkeywood. Oh, this one's Turkeywood Farms. The fellow's right in the New London area. And he makes an essence by distilling a liquid from the bark of shagbark hickories. Now, do you all know those trees? Yeah. You got them in your yard. Maybe the person, yeah. Shagbark hickory. They release an incredible nut that I fight with the squirrels to get. And when I'm successful, then it's a struggle to get enough nut meats.
Is it called a hickory nut?
It's a shagbark hickory nut.
Shagbark hickory
Yeah, and
I've never had a shag bark hickory.
yeah, and I'm telling you, I got enough once to
Yeah.
make half a batch of cookies.
Yep.
Those Russian butter cookies, you know,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
ones that, half a batch.
Because you do fight with the squirrels.
You fight with the
My
squirrel.
mom has chestnuts in her yard. And they have a battle every year.
Exactly. So
But this from the...
this is cool. I mean, the ingredients are sugar, hickory bark extract, and molasses. And Carol, would you mind, what I've done, and it's funny we're going to start with sweet, but the flavor's
okay.
a little
I like
subtle.
sweet.
So I think it's good if you taste it now. Now, there's a tray that's going to go around. And I was first introduced to this last summer. I work at the Chester Farmers Market, and we were always looking for things to do to engage the people that come. And we made little
You can start one of them
cornmeal
over here.
pancakes with cornmeal from Whit Davis's farm out here. So it was real dent corn, and we poured the syrup over it. It's just
Awesome.
It's really cool. You know, so shagbark hickories grow all over the country, but they're plentiful here. So this is something that is pretty specific.
Is it old? Is it an old
Okay, as I
procedure?
understand, the fellow is from the Midwest and learned about making the extract from his family in the
In
Midwest.
the Midwest. That's so cool.
Anybody heard of it before? You
Yeah.
have it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not the guy that makes it right now. I didn't meet him. I just met his wife.
It's sort of funny because we're so known for maple syrup, which is a totally different process, right? Around here, we tap the trees, they collect all that, and then they make this great syrup out of it. But this is sort of neat because the way she explained it, you actually make like a tea almost out of the bark.
And distill
To
it, though.
distill, yeah.
So you're going to get
the
it's going to
essence
evaporate.
of it. And then, right, a little bit of sugar and
the molasses must be for color.
color, because tell me that doesn't look like maple syrup.
And I would bet that the extract is bitter. Because the way it balances so nicely,
With the sugar.
you're getting that little like spicy bit
Yeah.
to it. Yeah, I would bet that the bark is bitter. This to me, you know, and I write a lot about flavor trends because chefs and Chris can speak to this in a minute. You want to be there. You want to be for your customer, you know, in the right place in terms of the trends that relate to the cuisine you serve. So to me, I mean, a chef in Connecticut that's not getting his hands on this.
Oh, I'm already thinking about all the things
or,
I can do.
or I'm
with
going to
it.
be selling you the
Yeah.
essence from my yard.
Yeah, and we'll be making
or giving it to you.
Priscilla Martel's shagbark syrup. Look for it in
Yeah.
supermarket near you.
Yeah, I don't want to knock the poor guy off.
But I think that's the cool thing about flavor. And I think Priscilla said something that really struck me just now, is that she believes when you boil and get this essence, it's going to have a bitter note, right? So that's why they add sugar to it. And sugar and bitter, two flavors that we do taste, right? There's taste buds on our tongues that actually do pick up those two things. Now, if you have too much of one, it sort of shuts you down, which is why what we do in the kitchen is we try to balance those flavors, right? So when I always like to say, when we get something in the kitchen that we're tasting and we say, oh, this is delicious, or you make something at home or you're eating in a restaurant and you say, oh, wow, this dish is really delicious. Think about that and what you're eating the next time you have that experience. And what it probably is, and I always use chicken Marbella.
Everybody
yeah.
does.
Okay, so does anyone remember that recipe from?
Silver
that
Palette.
Silver
Yeah.
Palette.
Silver Palette. It was one of the first cookbooks I ever owned. And I remember, and it was funny because I was probably the only one that didn't try that recipe. I did a ton of other things in that book, but I never tried that recipe. And then years later, everyone was starting to talk about this chicken Marbella, so I had to try it. And I really wanted to know why, out of this entire book of what I thought were great recipes, why that one was the one people sort of like funneled into, and everybody was making it and everyone was talking about it. I mean, and then I started going to, because I was just turning of age at that point, I started going to parties at friends' houses and people were experimenting, and I can't even, like, out of every 10 house parties I went to, 8 of them served chicken Marbella. And what was it about that dish? And then I started breaking that dish down. And again, this is about at the time I started cooking professionally. And what I realized is the flavors of that dish. So what do we have? We have sweet, right?
Lots. It was finished with like a quarter of a cup of brown sugar,
And
which
it
I don't
had
think
those-
we do
Yeah,
today.
yeah. But we have
Yeah.
those things, the
Plum,
plums.
prunes,
Yeah,
prunes,
prunes,
yep.
plums, whatever.
Dried plums,
Yeah,
right.
dried plums. Wine.
Red wine.
Sour. So now we already have 2 of our flavors, right? Because she gave you all 5, right? And what else is in there? Salt.
Capers.
Yeah, salty. So garlic.
Olives, lots of olives.
Olives.
Yeah.
So again, salty. So now you've got 3. So think about it. We taste 5 things on our taste buds, right? So now you have 3 of the 5. Now, if you look even deeper in that dish, I think you will find umami. Because wasn't there some tomato product in there?
Probably. I don't remember.
Okay.
Even the prune.
Yeah, or maybe in the prune, right? Because when you dry fruit, you get a layer, right? You get this glutamate thing on the outside. So, okay, so now we're at 4. And if you look even deeper, I think what we found is we found even something with bitter in there. And I can't remember what it is. But, okay, so now we have all 5 of the things we taste. Now, you put those in the right combination, and that's what makes us say, wow, that dish is delicious. Because think about your tongue and all these little taste buds, right? And you're eating this, and every single one of those taste buds is now lighting up. It's not like eating ice cream where all your sweet taste buds go, wow, right? But after a while, even me, have you heard of Talentes? Oh my God.
Talenti
What?
ice cream?
Oh my God, that's like evil, right? And we could talk about another flavor. And Priscilla and I talked about this one. Sea salt and caramel gelato. Have you tried that one? Oh my gosh. And they say
Oh,
crack
yes,
is addictive.
Talentas.
Oh my
Yes,
God.
oh, Talentis.
And I'm not a sweet person.
No, you're
and
not.
I can mow down 2 of those.
Yeah, but that's part of the trick of the food industry, isn't it now?
Sweet
We talked
and
about
salty.
This. Yeah.
But again, why sweet and salty? Okay, so again, 2 of those flavors. So if that was just caramel gelato, you sort of got 2 in there, right? Caramel, kind of bitter, right? And sweet at the
Sure.
same time. Okay, I'm okay with that. That doesn't send me over the edge. But you add salt, now you're adding a 3rd one, and all of a sudden I've gone from eating a spoonful, maybe 2, to mowing down 2, are they pints?
Yeah.
Really?
No, they're a little less than pints. I think they're like
No, they're
10 ounce or
pints.
whatever. They're pints?
They're pints.
The little screw things?
Yeah.
Okay, so why? So here we have these flavors in balance, right? Make you go, wow, this is delicious. Because like I said, if you just ate ice cream for a while, your taste buds are sort of going to go, and they get sort of flooded, and it's just your sweet buds that are, right, or that are sparked. But you start putting all these together, then every taste bud in your mouth lights up, and you go, wow, that's an amazing taste, or this tastes amazing, or a beautiful, or whatever adjective you have, that's what we do in the kitchen. Everyone says it's like this magic we do. It's not. It's just taking what we understand about taste, and then we can talk about flavor and smell and all those other things. You add those into it, and that's how you build great tasting dishes, by using what we have. And to find a new sweet, and this is the funny thing, when we build a dish, we have arsenals. If you look in most professional kitchens, you'll see these pantry shelves. Like mine is always right next to my stove. And we have like a section of sweet, a section of salty, a section of bitter. And what we do is we're constantly pulling those things down. So we don't have everything tasting exactly the same. Because this would fall in my sweet category. So this will go on my sweet shelf next to my maple syrup, right? Molasses. I mean, there's so many. And when I go to season a dish and I want the dish or one component of a dish to have a sweet note, I have this arsenal of sweets to draw from. And I think that's the cool thing about finding these new flavors, is that we put them in a slot that we taste, right? And then you can start experimenting, because this has more than just sweet. This has that little bit of bitter, which makes it an even more fun sweet to play with.
Right, and it's very mysterious. It's kind of shrouded there. One of the challenges is not making everything perfectly balanced, though.
No.
So I'm
You wanna
guessing, I've
play.
not had the Talenti salted caramel ice
yeah.
cream, but I've had salted caramel ice cream where when the salt is separated in some way, you're getting sweet, bitter, salty, and then you're not bored, because then you get sweet again, and it's kind of a roller coaster of the flavor
And
experience.
that's why Talentes is the best
Yeah,
one.
exactly,
Actually, there's
because-
one, someone gave me one that was made down here in Mystic or somewhere, that actually a small creamery is actually making, that is even better than, I can't even believe
And
I'm
then the
saying this.
Richuti one is killer.
Yeah,
They make a
I-
popsicle.
So again, that's the thing. It's about getting these flavors in the right combination, but not like Priscilla
Yeah,
just said,
otherwise
not the
it's-
right not just the combination, but the textural thing too. Because when you have that sea salt flaked on top of the ice cream, that's enough.
Exactly.
Because we've been playing with that at the restaurant a lot. Because I want to know why it's so like over the top for me.
Because for people, and I have a feeling that everyone in this room is a pretty experienced cook, that's the most exciting part of the food business in the time I've been in it, that everyone's into cooking and they really feel comfortable in their own level of cooking, and that's very exciting. But one of the challenges we all have is just muting the flavors because you start to add so many things, and then you get a kind of palate fatigue. So this is like a secret little touch. I'm going to touch on one more sweet thing.
Then go on
and
to
it was on the
next one.
corner of
next
the
one is-
plate with the wafers, and I didn't point it out. I was at the Fancy Food Show this summer, and a company called Fresh Origin raises fresh edible flowers and microgreens and does a lot with food service, probably more on the West Coast, but they may be national.
Yeah, no, we
and
get
what they
their
started is their fresh herbs, they are now like encapsulating in sugar. So this is appearing on the edge of cocktails. They're trying to sell it to go on cupcakes or any kind of thing. But the flavors are so bright and delicious. They're really good. So that was on the corner of the little tray that I passed, and I could send these around again. But what's interesting is in the effort to find alternatives to sugar because of whatever issues people feel they have with it, I think they're rediscovering sugars and good things that can be done with them. And this is a really cool...
I know my mom screamed at me because I was talking about it being new, and it's called stevia. And okay, so I was talking about this powder that you get, right? And I guess when we were kids, my mom always had an herb garden, and she made us this, what she called was sun tea. And sun tea was just a bunch of herbs she put in a big jug of water, and then basically you brewed it in the sun because we left it on the porch. Wherever the sun was shining, and as kids, our job was to move the jar with the sun. So it was never in the shade because the quicker it got done, the more iced tea we got. And this sun tea was always a sweet tea. And what I didn't realize is my mom had always never put sugar in it, and I didn't think about this, but she grew stevia. And she still does to this day, grows stevia. And it's a, I don't know, weed-looking thing.
Like mint.
Yeah, like it's in, actually, I think it might even be in the mint family, so it grows like mint does, where you grow, and that's what she said, she's had the same batch of it for years. It keeps coming back every year, bigger and bigger and bigger.
And I just tasted monk fruit, a sugar derived from monk fruit, which is like a tropical kind of a papaya-like thing.
Yeah.
And it was a company out of Texas did a really good job, and that is, thousands of times the strength of sugar. So they're balancing it with cane, and then ounce for ounce, it's half the calories. I thought that was a great product.
Yeah. And I think my main chef has been my chef now for 10 years, has type 1 diabetes, so he's...
Type 1, wow.
Yeah, and so he's had it since he was 5, but he's very into the different types of sugars and the way his body, because the glycemic index to him is very important. Mm-hmm. And some sugars he can have, some sugars he can have more of because of what their... Sugar is sugar is sugar, so it doesn't matter, but things like stevia and probably that fruit one too, his body can process a little better. And I follow him, and I feel better too, because if he's doing it and I follow what he's doing, it usually is a benefit for me too, because too much sugar is bad.
Yeah,
even though we could all eat a couple.
Even though we're starting, here we are starting with the sweet.
All right, so move on to the next one, because I'm really excited about the next one too.
So thinking about flavor and where I am as a consumer, which I think we're probably on a similar page, we want to eat more vegetables. We're looking at different ways to garnish bread, eating bread in a way that brings value to the bread and the bread can still shine. Also, I know from research there's a huge demand for things with seeds and nuts. I was just at a trade show working with a nut company. I mean, every fifth person came and asked if we also handled sesame seeds, and yeah, it's just really interesting.
Seeds and nuts.
I'm at the cutting edge. I'm seeing this. So this is something old that's new again, and in this part of Connecticut, some people here might even know it. This is called Dukkha. It's an Egyptian condiment. And so if you wouldn't mind, Carol, there's probably almost enough for each of you to have one, if not share between two people. I made this, and it is toasted hazelnuts, toasted coriander seeds, toasted sesame seeds, toasted cumin seeds, salt and pepper. It's all cooled off and then ground into a little powder. And in Egypt, and I apologize, I just ate dinner, so I'm not ravenous for this. Maybe Chris, maybe you're ravenous.
Yeah, because I didn't eat
at the
dinner.
table,
I missed dinner.
at the table, it's dip it in the oil, and would be this is Charlie's. I've got one of his au levain breads,
and
then you dunk it in.
Don't eat the bread, I want it.
So it's this thing, but beyond that, it's also great tossed over, sprinkled over salads and
Pasta.
pasta as on top at the end. It's a very Middle Eastern flavor profile. But over cauliflower would be great. And you're seeing this, and you probably have it on your menu, but chefs are doing things with crumbles. There'll be these little garnishes, and it says crumble, and it's a savory dish, but it's really something, it's not,
I'm not
apple
that
crisp.
cutting edge.
But yeah, you know what I'm talking. So I just thought this was something to, and this is out there. People are rediscovering this. So it's not a flavor in that it's something you've never seen before. You've probably heard of coriander and cumin, et cetera.
But this is a good example of where texture comes into the play of taste, right?
Very much so.
Because here you have the taste, you have salt, right? You have some different things, and toasting brings out some things, right? But you also have that texture, and that does something to your palate as well.
And you also have, I can't think of the numbing quality from the coriander, chemisthenesis, which is one of the other parts of taste and flavor. That's a
Szechuan
physical.
peppercorns.
Szechuan peppercorns has it, and menthol. When you smell it, that numbing. So it's really cool.
Dukkha?
Dukkah.
I'm the chef, we're not that smart. Food encyclopedia.
Yeah, that's me.
Chef.
Oh my God. I feel like the fat guy in that PC Mac commercial. Please don't make me like that. But I thought this is one that I first had it at the CIA, one of the Worlds of Flavor. There's this event they have every year following a food theme.
They're
They
not
invite
talking about the
chefs.
CIA that's
Yeah.
outside of Washington.
No, we're
It's
talking
the
about
Culinary Institute of America.
They have this really fun for chefs event where they bring chefs from around the world in to talk about different subjects. So that's where I first had it, and it's out there a little bit.
And this one's old.
Oh, ancient. I mean, this is Egyptian cuisine.
So we didn't just, so sitting here talking about this now, you have to realize we didn't just come up with this as chefs in our time and food people of our time. I mean, people have known this for as long as we've been on the planet. I mean, you go back to the Japanese who were the first one. We're just talking about umami now, that fifth one. I don't know if you've heard about it or haven't heard about it, but they've just isolated that taste bud now. So now, back when I was in school, you had 4 tastes. Right? And that was scientifically proven that you had 4 different taste receptors on your tongue that tasted those 4 things only. Well, the Japanese, thousands of years ago, figured out there was a 5th one, right? Which is this savory.
Early 20th century.
Oh, earliest.
Sorry.
Earliest 20s. She's my corrector.
See, she is
I
the
can't
encyclopedia.
stop
That's okay.
myself.
But
I'm
that's
so
okay.
sorry.
But you understand, they figured this out a long time ago that we do have this 5th. Oh no, I'm not saying they discovered
but it was in
I'm
their
just saying
cuisine,
they
yes,
used
yes.
it. So they didn't have scientific knowledge thousands of years ago. It wasn't that. It's just they knew that it was something. So they didn't have the stuff we have today and in the 60s or whatever to detect these things. But they knew thousands of years ago, and they knew this, something about this. They didn't know what it was, but someone stumbled upon it probably that said the combination of
Hazelnuts,
Yeah.
coriander, cumin, sesame, salt, and pepper.
would be good together, right? And I think that's the fascinating thing about how taste has evolved and what we think tastes good. That's why I always think it's good to always look to see what's coming next, but it's also good to look back and to see, and I think that combination of those 2 things propels food forward.
And from flavor trend perspective, our society, particularly Americans as opposed to the global food consuming public, we're really gravitating to ethnic flavors like never before and big tastes. Hotter, bolder, bigger. That's so much part of our food. And I mean, what they've done to process stuff in the aisles, I can't get over.
And you know why?
The things.
At least my theory, why? Because that's who we are. Because I'm not from here, I'm not from this country. My parents I'm first generation. I was born here, but I don't have any family here. So I grew up going to Europe. All my family is over there. We're the only one on either side of the family in this country. And I see it through different eyes sometimes as far as what we are as a food culture here in America. And, I grew up in the 70s where Europe thought our food was weird and boring and awful for you and stuff. And I always as a kid, I didn't understand that because I'm from a food family. And I was like, but I'm American, so there must be good food here because my parents are food people. what I discovered is they didn't understand so much what our food was because it's this mix. You go to Europe, like my parents, one side of my family is from Austria. They've basically been eating the same things for forever. You know, they have these recipes. They're all good recipes. I grew up on them. I love them. But here, we're from so many different parts of the world, right? And we have so many different influences. We did a show today on Thanksgiving traditions. And I was having a hard time defining what that is here because Faith is Italian and Lori is Italian. So they have Italian.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you're talking eating raviolis at Thanksgiving and lasagna? That's not turkey, but I think we all, as in when the first generations came to this country, in your family and all families, we attached our food to ourselves and we found those ingredients kind of here that matched that, and that became our American flavors, right? So I have a friend who owns a restaurant in Litchfield who's Irish, who's just like, I don't understand corned beef. They don't have that in Ireland. I never had corned beef until I came here. What is corned beef? And that was one of the first, so that was in the early 90s when I worked for him. That was my first experience of, but it's Irish. But no, it's when Irish came to America, they had this flavor profile. They had these kind of things they were eating as they grew up, and they came here. They're in a new country. They're not comfortable, and to make the food for their families that resembled most what they had at home, they found things like corned beef, and they did this treatment to this one cut of meat, which was probably, because they were immigrants, was probably very inexpensive, and to feed their families, and boom, all of a sudden, corned beef is American. I mean, it's Irish, right? All of a sudden, and I'm sure, and I told you, and I always tell James, I'm like, wait, you're going to go back one day, and you're going to go to a pub, and there's going to be a corned beef on rye in a restaurant. You're not going to believe it. I was in Paris not too long ago, and I had creme brulee on the menu as creme brulee. I mean, where did creme brulee come from?
New York?
No, New York. It comes from a French restaurant in New York called Le Cirque.
No. James Beard wrote about creme brulee. Sorry. Oh.
Well, he wrote about creme brulee, but not the actual custard.
But it was New York.
Yeah.
Yes, it was
All
New
right,
York.
we're not
Not
gonna
the
get in a
actual
little
custard
debate
with
here.
the sugar on top. That was a Spanish dish he brought. And in France, another example is in Rome, you can get a Caesar salad. You agree with that one for me, right?
Mexico.
That's Mexican. So why all of a sudden can you get a Caesar salad in Rome? I always thought growing up Caesar salad was an Italian dish.
It's not funny.
Well, it was.
I think we probably all
But you know
did.
what? It was an Italian dish because everywhere you got it when it first popped up was an Italian restaurant. So for me, who didn't go to Italy that often, and I didn't know Italian food, Caesar salad, of course. So Americans are going to Europe. They're traveling around now. And in Rome, in many restaurants, you can get things like Caesar salad, which, again, that shows how we're globalizing.
Right, I was going to say, it speaks more to global culinary traditions.
And
a
how-
Caesar salad with chicken is as popular as a burger. It's an export.
The most interesting story, and when I was in Paris, I had to go find this woman. The most interesting story I think I read last year was this woman from America who went to Paris, and she wanted to start a food truck. And she has a hamburger food truck. Now, here, you'd be like, it's a hamburger food truck. Even if it's a great hamburger. It's a hamburger food truck, right? Whatever, it's a hamburger. We can get those anywhere. You have to wait, and I wanted to talk to her. Impossible to talk to her, because she literally has a line that goes around the block to eat a cheeseburger. And it's amazing to me because being a child, growing up in Paris, could you imagine an American in the 70s in Paris? First of all, they didn't really much like us, kids, especially kids. And second, you have French fries. In my mind, that's, even though it says French, that's my food, not yours. So I want ketchup, right? Because ketchup, invented by not invented, but it comes from a flavor profile from Heinz, right? CIA deemed it as one of the most perfect flavored foods because of its balance, right? It has umami, sour, bitter, all those things. That's what you eat French fries in America with, right? The last time I went, we go to this little bistro where my dad grew up. A bistro that's been there forever. A bistro where now it's a second generation, where the guy who owns it now, his mother used to look at us through her glasses down. Oh, Americans, they always want ketchup. And would not give us ketchup, they gave us mayonnaise. Oh, I hated mayonnaise with French fries. Who eats mayonnaise with French fries? You do? Not American. But now, so fast forward, I'm in Paris, same place, second generation, and we just got off the plane, so we were all tired, and I'm sitting there at the table, and I wouldn't talk, and my dad's like, what's the matter? I'm just like, I can't believe you, because he goes more often than I. He's like, I can't believe you don't see that. And he's like, see what? And I was like, I don't even want to sit here anymore. I want to go back to the hotel now. And he's like, what? And I was like, there's ketchup on the table. And it's not just ketchup, it's Heinz. And it's the fancy bottle that you put on the lid with the squeak, the one I like the most because you don't have to shake it out. And that's on the table in Paris. So I think that's a flavor, right? Ketchup's definitely a flavor. And that's a flavor that now we're showing the world, which I think is very exciting.
Well, when you were talking about umami, isn't anchovy, isn't that umami?
Yep.
I won't touch an anchovy. The idea
Do you like
of
soy
touching
sauce?
No, I love anchovy paste.
Oh,
I
isn't that
just don't
funny?
wanna-
Yeah,
Yeah, how
it's
many
not as
people are like
fishy.
that? How many people will eat a Caesar salad knowing that it's in the dressing, but you can't eat an anchovy?
But I think it's because anchovies are, in Europe, are kept refrigerated in the tin. I visited an anchovy packing plant in Morocco. And that makes all the difference. So we only buy them in the jar. And if they're really red in the jar, they'll taste good. So if you're the least bit willing to try, that's my recommendation.
That's the
Because it's that they're
European way.
rancid when they're in the...
My dad has to have it on his pizza. And we go out to the movies once a month and we split a pizza, so he has to have his half and my half, and I swear it always bleeds over to my half of the pizza.
But that's
And-
rank stuff.
Oh,
It's just a
anchovies on
bad
pizza is a
example.
bad idea.
No, but
So
you-
there are bad flavors.
No, it's
There are bad
no,
flavors for some
no.
people.
I know,
For me-
no, but
no,
the
no.
point is, we get hogwash because nobody tells us the right thing. I mean, we've been eating bad anchovies, like
That's all we
rancid
got.
food, because nobody's figured it out.
That's
you know.
all we got. All right, so can we cook
Anyway,
now?
yeah,
All
go
right,
right
so
ahead.
so mine is sumac.
Cool, but this is cool because it really relates to what we did. It's a local flavor.
It's a flavor, and it's a pretty cool flavor, and I'm going to.
It's what
Did
our
I mention that Chris is on the Food Schmooze with Faith Middleton
All right,
every
here,
Wednesday?
pass this
I
around.
forgot to, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just pass this around and let everyone get a little
So-
bit. And what I do is just put a little bit on your finger and taste it. That'll get it started.
The
and you'll
colonists
see.
use sumac to make lemonade.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, this one's been around again. So give us the history because I'm bad with this stuff.
Well, no, I mean, I don't, it's very popular in the Middle East again. And
Yeah.
It's not poison sumac. I know what it looks like, but I
But
wouldn't
it's not,
trust
right.
myself.
Yeah.
Because I
And-
got poison sumac
Okay,
myself.
so
I
poison
remember.
sumac grows a lot around here,
They
and
look
it looks
very similar,
almost
yeah,
exactly
yeah,
like it.
and-
So just like wild mushrooms, you have to be in the know as far as which one's which. I have a
Sumac.
Sumac.
So you've
and it's-
seen it. It looks like the bishop's crook,
Yeah.
and it's red with the berries.
And one of the varieties is related to poison ivy, and that's the one that's bad.
No, well, there's non-poison and there's poison.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, I'm not poisoning you.
but when the colonists arrived, and it's
Yeah.
in a lot of the cookbooks and stuff that comes out of Mystic Seaport. It was a souring agent, so they made
Yeah.
a lemonade out of it.
Yeah, isn't that cool? So do you get, it's a lemon, but it's not as strong, so it's a sour, but it's not as strong as sour.
And there's a little rosy taste too, right?
And I'm always amazed by the different flavors I get from it. So if someone can help me pass these around, what I've done is two different things. One,
tray over
and this
there.
is two different things I use it for. One of the things is in salads. So I love it in like bean salads and lentil salads, and this is a couscous salad. So only put a shrimp on top of each one, and then you can give a fork and go. And the other preparation is with mixing it with thyme, which is called za'atar. And that, yeah, and this is one of those things that I use with chicken and shrimp. It's a great marinating tool because it adds citrus without having to use lemon or a citrus flavor, or if we're going to stay in that flavor, a sour note. So like I said before, in our sour arsenal, we have a lot of different things to use, right? Mostly vinegars and citrus and what else? Citrus, vinegars, wines.
Fruit juice. I mean, regular fruit juice
yeah.
has
Yeah, so
the
all,
sour element.
the cool thing about this one is that it really mimics lemon, and it's non-related to the lemon.
And
right?
it won't cook the food while you're marinating.
And it won't cook the food while you're marinating like it's, yeah. So it's an acid kind of taste without the acid, not benefits, but characters.
Do you use it in the restaurant?
Yeah, I use it all the time. I buy it. I wanted to bring a little bit. I buy it in such a huge container that I went to the store and bought a little package so you can pass that around too.
So for you, I haven't purchased, I usually only get it from a Middle Eastern store. Is that?
That's where I get it from. I
Yeah,
get it
New
from
London, that's the last time I bought it.
Yeah, I get it from a Middle Eastern store, and it's cool because everyone's like, I don't know Middle Eastern. We have one in West Hartford called Cosmos. So I stumbled upon the place. So I think someone told me there was a Middle Eastern store in the New Haven area.
No, there's one in New London too.
Oh, New London too.
There's lots,
So so there's lots of them.
Syed's, yeah.
Okay.
And it does keep quite a long time.
Yeah, I
don't think it's really a problem of staleness.
No, and always buy, we always talk about this on the show too, always buy in the smallest quantity you can, right? Especially if you're not, that way it keeps fresh.
But also, one of my tips is buy where there's a lot of turnover. So I went to the health food store in Old Saybrook called Food Works, where they buy the bulk spices, but not too big. And then I think they go through it fairly quickly.
Yeah, and Middle Eastern stores too, because in Middle Eastern cuisine they use a ton of spices.
Right.
So if you go to the Middle East, like Cosmos, I get a lot of my spices there because, again, same thing with Priscilla says, the turnover is just crazy. And if you're in Stop and Shop, not that I have anything against Stop and Shop, but if you're in Stop and Shop, you don't know how old the spices are. Not how long they've been in the store, but how long they were before they were
And
in a pack.
I don't know if they carry it in a health food store, but another good point is you can buy exactly what you need.
Yeah.
So I needed
Faith's always
a cup.
talking about
I needed a
price.
cup of coriander seeds, so
Yeah.
I just scooped a cup out of the thing.
Or a tablespoon, right?
Yeah.
'Cause
Or
do
yeah,
they
you
weigh
can
it?
do that
Do they
too.
weigh it?
Yes,
Yeah, they weigh it.
yes.
I think is that an amount, right?
But especially for nuts, because
I'm out of
I do a
the
lot with
little
nuts
thingies.
What little thing?
that I get
Oh,
from
those?
the
These.
producers. So I tell people to use the health food store.
So yeah, you get a lemony taste without having to add lemon, which is sort of weird, right?
So how long have you been using it, just out of curiosity? I mean, a few years?
No, a long time.
Long time, okay.
My first, so this is the cool thing about working in a restaurant, is that we do get people that work in our restaurant from all around the world. And that's the cool thing. And in my restaurant, no matter what position you hold, you have to take a turn at what we call family meal, or what we eat. And we don't sit down formally to eat, but every meal period, whether it's lunch or dinner, someone is in charge of actually making dinner for us, and then it just goes in a container, and while you're working, you grab a bowl of it or whatever. It's usually something that goes in a bowl you can eat with a spoon.
And you judge your teammates, or judge you based on the food that you serve them. So
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
You know what?
If you don't listen, if you don't pony up and serve something good, you're not.
Yeah, it's more. For us, it's more about just getting a quick bite to eat. But I do understand if it's not good. If it's not good, we do get a little cranky.
Yeah, no, but you can also make friends if you do something that's dynamite.
Yeah. So one of my guys, the guy who does my desserts, is from Morocco. So he gave me a lot of influence. Under my sink, even though my health department hates me for it, is always preserved lemons. I mean, how are you supposed? I don't know enough about preserved lemons and where you should make them, but he finds underneath the sink is the best place to make it. And he also does this. Yeah, that's it.
That's it?
I think that's it. Yeah, we're good. So if you want seconds, there's a little bit more. So we get all these flavors from all around the world. I have one guy from Jamaica that works for me. I have two guys from Yemen. I have one guy from Korea, one guy from Thailand. So all these flavors, and again, paying attention to what they eat and the flavor combinations they use, or they say, hey, can you get me this? It evolved, and these things, the ones that I like, end up on that shelf, right? Or in that section of our refrigerator, if it's a refrigerator, and they become part of our arsenal, right? And when we're coming up with a dish, we say things like, and this is where I come in and my chef comes in. What we call ourselves are the kitchen editors. So one of my guys will come up with a dish and he'll present it to us. And it used to just be me doing this, but now I have another guy. My main chef does most of this now. And so someone will say, I want to do this. He says, okay, make it. He'll order the stuff to do a trial, make it, and then he edits it. So like, young chefs tend to pile stuff on, and what Brian's main job then is to dissect the dish and see what is essential in there. So see what flavors, and he has a better understanding than the young guys, of what is essential in a dish to give it the flavor that the person's looking for. So we're not trying to take the creative process away from the young chef. What we're trying to do is just show him that you don't need to load up a dish with 1,000 flavors to make it good, but you can take that dish, and it's fun to show them this because their eyes pop open when you do that same dish with them. So they made a dish, and it's a little, I always use the word muddy, which is not really a good term.
No,
but
I've used
muddy
it too.
is because it's just too much, and you can't discern the flavors anymore, and it just, to me, mud comes to mind, murkiness. And to take that same dish and to edit it, right, to take 1 or 2 things out, or 3 or 4 things out, depending on what they did, and show them how much brighter a dish it is, that really shows them that, you really have to be more aware. It's not just throwing everything in a pot and letting it go. Everything you put in a pot or in a dish has to have purpose. And that's when you get to be a mindful cook. And again, we try to tell our young cooks, because we have a lot of them now in our new place, that you're not going to get this overnight. And some people, without the right training, never get this. But if you're mindful and you do a lot of thinking while you're eating, and this is not even about doing it at work while you're cooking. This is just when you're out having a pizza. Just being mindful. And you don't have to critique or criticize or anything or say, I don't like their, but just in your mind, think about, oh, I just bit into this pizza. Oh, it had a nice crunch. So what did that do to the experience of eating this pizza? Or the sauce, it was really sweet. Did I like that? Then you have to be, as a professional chef, you have to also go with, if I didn't like it, you have to take it one step further. You go, but do other people like it? So you have to really look at what's happening in our area and in this country for food, because we're not feeding ourselves as professional chefs. We're feeding you. We're feeding everybody. So, if the flavor of sea salt and caramel, and I think this is what Priscilla was alluding to earlier, how it comes down this pipe. It starts in the professional kitchen, and then if it catches on, like sea salt and caramel, it catches on, it bleeds out or runs out into, or it should up.
If you're interested
it should go up.
If you're interested in trends, I mean, it's a little game, and we can all learn it and play it. And what trendologists do is for food, they start in what the most refined, obscure restaurants are doing, like Lee heard a gentleman from São Paulo, and ants are included in the cuisine. Okay, well, so that's the farthest, most obscure, use of an ingredient. But it may be a popular thing. Maybe it's going to be salted caramel, and then it'll start to appear in the food magazines. So you may see a new flavor combo or a cuisine in a food magazine. Then just put that in your brain, and pretty soon, some specialty food, some fancy little product in the local gourmet store will have it. And then the next phase, it'll start to appear in mass publications and then in mass cuisine. And if you look at that skillet sauce category in the grocery store, I don't spend a lot of time there, but a woman I interviewed invented one of these things, and she was so proud. I had to go see the package. There's all these unusual combos, Moroccan lemon chicken from Kraft, that sort of thing. So that's the progression that people in the business look at, and they're always trying to evaluate whether that is it the ant or the salted caramel. Yeah. And
so next is, what's the big ice cream company, like the big commercial?
Yeah, Borden's
or Breyers or whatever. So now sea salt caramel, I don't think it's crossed over into the big yet, but it's close.
It's very close.
It's very, because now you're seeing 2 or 3 different gourmet ones.
This summer, because we love ice cream, so we were on the ice cream diet this summer, and I had Sam Adams beer and peanut brittle ice cream. Did you have that too? God, it was so good. Just loved it. And then the other one was the salted caramel, and we had that in 3 places in Old Lyme. And I know, ice cream companies sell the bases, and you mix it all up. Yeah. Now the lady in Old Lyme, the one we really like, she said that they made it all there. Now that may well be true, but it was odd that the local places all had those flavors.
Now it's floating in.
But hers were the best. Yeah, it's floating in. So I have a feeling that I'm certainly at Whole Foods, which would be, if there's a number to these stages, and 5 being mass and 1 being obscure, unusual ice cream flavors is a 3.
Yeah, and
so
salted caramel is at the top.
I'm sure it's the 3. Yeah,
all right, so I have one more that my friend is doing. And this one I've never heard of. and I'm hoping Priscilla can help me with it.
Oh, stump the.
No, it's not stump, because you probably know it's a fruit, but it's an olive fruit or an
Well,
olive.
that's a local.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a friend, and what is it? So what is it? Is it olive?
It's a shrub.
Yeah?
Now, somebody in this room may know. It's called the something olive. What, say it?
Autumn
Autumn
olive.
olive.
That's
Yeah,
it.
you
That's
make
it. I was just
jam
looking
out
at
of it
it.
and stuff.
Okay, autumn olives, right? And my friend Lou up in Massachusetts, lucky enough to buy a piece of property with, I guess, millions of these things, and he doesn't even know what to do with
But you
it.
make jam out of it, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I've only
but
had jam.
Like he said, you make jam out of it, but you can only eat so much
Yeah.
jam, and you can't make so much jam that you give everyone for Christmas every year, and they go, oh, great, it's
Again.
Lou's jam again. And really, I mean, I have friends that give me jam too, and then I have them lined up because one friend of mine makes jam every year, and she loves giving it to me, and I feel so bad because I've known her for so long now. On top of my refrigerator, if she ever comes over to my house, I have 97, 98,
Wait a
99.
minute. You ready?
Yeah.
Crostata on your menu.
I should take. No, but they're all little. They're
Well,
just these
so do a
little
combo.
jars.
Come on.
All right, wait. So here's what Lou is doing with it. He's
Oh.
making autumn olive wine.
Huh.
So it's in its second fermentation right now, and he wrote me this morning saying, "Oh my gosh, it tastes like Sauvignon Blanc."
Oh, how interesting, huh?
Sauvignon Blanc.
the white wine.
It tastes just like, it's
Cool.
still a little in its
Yeah.
musty stage and stuff. But again,
Gee.
there is a cool, right, thing that he's
Yeah.
been, basically just goes to the birds, like he says. And he does. He makes about, what did he say? He makes like 25 or 30 jars of jam. And he loves it, and they eat it with their toast every
It's
morning.
good. I mean, but
it's really good.
I agree.
But-
I can only eat so much jam.
But you can only eat so much jam, and he still has tons of these berries that he watches the birds
Huh.
eat. I think when Priscilla said, well, it's sustained, I think all these things we push forward, we do all the craziest things with this stuff. And then we take 2 steps back, we find what works, and sometimes something works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes things like caramel ice cream, sea salt caramel ice cream might be one of those things that sustains and stays forever.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry, and stays
No,
forever,
yeah.
but also, there are some things that we've had enough and sort of, right, it dies off.
Yeah, I know, the bacon, I think that rancidity is a big problem because we are programmed to resist,
Yeah.
things that are bad. That's why bitter tastes tend to be rejected because a lot of, poison food is bitter. Floral flavors have been infiltrating a little bit, like elderberry. You think of that Saint Germain liqueur, which is elderberry, and that's really popular for mixologists, so the floral. But one of the things about floral, because I've written about it a little, it can be just beautiful, but a tinge wrong, and plus people's what they're accustomed to, and it can taste soapy. So rose or lavender, and I think those flavors can be a little polarizing for that reason. But I personally love that if
These
it's done
food
nicely.
companies do have people searching the world for these things, right? What's that kosher commercial? Have you ever seen that kosher commercial?
Oh, yeah, they're-
Where
yes.
Yeah, they're
but
in
I
the field in the
they're-
Amazon.
But
Yep, yep.
and that's not just a spoof. I mean, these food companies actually do have flavor people traveling the world,
They do,
looking
yeah.
for that next.
And
right?
that's a big,
That
big
next
effort
flavor.
where both the flavor companies and the manufacturers, which could be the Progressos, the Bordens, whatever, send teams on these culinary research where they will go to the real, Chiang Mai, Thailand, and experience the actual authentic food and then bring it back and figure out what they can learn and interpret that's relevant to
Very
a tea
exciting.
or
Yeah.
ice cream or whatever it's going to be.
Did you have a friend who worked for IFF?
I have a friend that works for Nestle's. He's their
Nestle's.
He's their senior food researcher in Shanghai, China now. He used to be here in Connecticut, New Milford. They had actually their flavor department, R&D facility was in New Milford for years and years, and then they moved it to California. And at that point, he went to China, and they've taken over China now with their flavors. And he finds it fascinating because he's using the same flavors he did here, but he's using it in different combinations there, which I'm really
and
interested.
probably doses.
Yeah,
Doses.
and different dosages
Because
there.
when you were talking about, and I was saying that we have a reputation for these bold, big flavors, you took it in a totally different
Yeah,
direction.
yeah.
I would have said, because you started in the
Yeah.
direction I thought you were
Yeah.
going in, which is it's our people. We're big,
Yeah.
brash,
Yeah.
a bold
That's true.
country. So I could see why, how hot can it get? There's actually people that work on raising chili peppers that are hotter and hotter as a kind of a dare. scorpion.
They're
I
getting
tasted
dangerous,
the
right?
scorpion chili
Yeah.
stuff, and there were some people from Thailand next to me, and I mean, a toothpick, the tippy tip, and I put it on my tongue. I was like,
Fire.
wow. And the people from Thailand with a reputation for eating very hot food, they said that's hotter than anything we've ever consumed.
They're engineered.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.